Saha, the author of The Digital Choices, and you are listening to the Insurtech Story podcast, the platform to spread knowledge on insurance innovation, digital disruptions, and entrepreneurship. Our website, insurtechstory.com, and we are available on Spotify, Apple, and Google. Welcome to today's show, where we will discuss on the topic how technology is reinventing the way India buys insurance, something very interesting for us. And for now, I'm delighted to welcome our guest, KV Deepu. Deepu is the president and head of operations and customer service at Bajaj Allianz General Insurance Company. He spearheads the digital transformation drive at Bajaj Allianz GIC, leveraging startups from fintech, insurtech globally, while leading a team of more than 1,000 people in 220 locations. He is a management graduate from the Indian Institute of Management, Lucknow, and he joined Bajaj Allianz GIC in 2016 after a stellar career of nearly 20 years with GE Capital. So, Deepu, welcome on board, and I'm truly excited to have you for this show.
Thank you so much, Surya. Glad to see your warm welcome, and hello to all the viewers listening to us.
With pleasure, Deepu. Um, just to start our conversation for today on one of the very interesting topic, I would like to start by saying, in India, the overall market size of the insurance sector is expected, or rather was expected, to touch around 280 billion US dollars in 2020. The life insurance industry was expected to increase at a CAGR of 5.3% between 2019 and 2023, which is the estimated figure. India's insurance penetration was pegged at 3.76% in financial year 2020, with life insurance penetration of 2.82% and non-life penetration at 0.94%. In terms of the insurance density, if I have to look at, India's overall density stood at $78 in FY 2020. The market share of private sector companies in the general and health insurance market increased from 47.9% in 2019 to 8.03% in FY20. And in the life insurance segment, private players held a massive, kind of a market share of 33.78% in premium underwritten service in FY20, which is quite a good number for the Indian market. And for this year, if I look at until March 2021, premium from new business of life insurance companies stood at $31.9 billion. And as a whole in India, the gross premium written of non-life insurance reached at 26.52 billion in FY21 between April and March, I would say. So, considering, I know there's a lot of data out there, but in considering all of these, uh, how do you see the changing phase of Indian insurance industry in this decade? Perhaps, we can talk from the angle of the rise of digital, the customer archetypes, business model developments, and also the evolving value chain.
Yeah. Firstly, Surya, it's amazing to see the kind of data that you spoke about. So when there is so much of data in the question, then I guess from an answer point of view, I'll focus on areas beyond data, because you covered a really wide range, and which will be very useful to the audience listening to this podcast. Surya, if you look at the 3-4 angles that you mentioned, digital, customer archetypes, business model development, and the evolving value chain. I'll start with digital. You see, if you look at the last few years, and it goes without saying, that COVID-19 has kind of reset history, right? Now it's no longer about BC and AD, but it's about
Yes.
before Corona and after Corona, right? So I guess that's been a point of inflection. And I think everybody perforce had to digitize the physical. At that point in time, there were some people who were leaders, and there were some people who had to play catch up. Having said that, Surya, what we need to understand is that while digital is not just now a way of working, but also a way of living. At the same time, in an area like insurance, because the moment of truth is claims, and when customers call you, they don't call you during their good times, right? They call you during times when they are in trouble and they need a healing touch and they need empathy. So today the accent has shifted from digitizing the physical to humanizing the digital. How do you ensure that you give digital servicing, yet you give empathy? And one example of that is what we've launched, which is called virtual relationship manager at hospital. So if customers get hospitalized, typically they are worried about two factors. One is of course recovery, as in moving from illness to wellness, and the other is navigating this complex administrative machinery in hospitals. So our RM calls up, and this is a pilot done with select hospitals, calls up the customer and he tells the customer, please don't worry about the processing bit, I'll take care of that. And he does that digitally, and he offers them full empathy. So it's a great combination of giving empathy and managing the digital processing for customers. When we got an NPS done on this, we got a score of 90 without a single detractor. Now, coming to customer archetypes, Surya, essentially, this happens in three ways. Now, one is if you look at, the rise of data and analytics, I think one thing which we have to take cognizance of is the fact that the actuary, is the original data scientist, right? Actuaries have been in, insurance for, as long as the business has existed. So obviously, when you look at actuarial models, and then of course, if you also expand them now into, business models, with data and analytics and customer experience and, various functions thrown in. One, of course, is the way you slice and dice your, current segments, right? Because you look at from various points of view, from underwriting, from customer experience, from an actuarial point of view, in terms of, doing, segmented servicing, right? So I think that's clearly there, which are the segments you focus on, so on and so forth, which is, bread and butter for many industries today. The other Surya is, at one level, when you look at, digital, and I'm linking digital and customer archetypes here. When you look at, the way digital servicing has evolved, today, it's become customer segment agnostic, because virtually, everybody, had to, be onboarded, from a digital way of working. And I think this is where, increasingly going forward, multilingual will kick in, because in our market, where customers speak, several languages, it's very difficult to communicate only in one language. So I think, increasingly, you will see customers being spoken to in their language, and that will take, customer experience to the new level across segments and by, combining the power of digital. Now, coming to business model development, Surya, I think, again, there are two, three factors here. Now, one is, of course, it's a regulated business. And I think that's why the regulator has been, proactive in terms of coming out, with this sandbox approach, whereby you basically, apply to the regulator and then, you get approvals for, what we call sandbox business models, right? Which are innovative, proof of concept initiatives. And then, based on, how the pilots shape up, right? You can then take an approval for, taking it forward. The other is, if you look at, the way, insurtechs and fintechs, have been, entering the landscape, typically you will find broadly, there are various ways of classifying them, but broadly you can classify them into two buckets, Surya. One is, those people, those models, which come in and, they try to challenge, the existing players. And the other is people who will pick, one part of the value chain, maybe give a solution there. And then there, they tie up with, with big players, right? So maybe you drop the entire value chain and you say, okay, fine, I can give a very good claim solution, or I can give a very good customer servicing solution. And then on that, you work with, big players and you tie up with them. Now, whether it, it is this symbiotic relationship, or whether it is about, new kids on the block, challenging the existing players, right? You do see, how business models evolve, right? Because business models may evolve, organically in an evolutionary manner, or they could also, suddenly, have a new dimension, coming in, from a revolutionary manner. The other angle, Surya, here will be products. Now, if you look at insurance, the way it evolved, right, early on, right, at that time, shipping was the main industry and marine insurance was the biggest form. When the automobile revolution happened, right, and then, you had motor insurance, coming in, right, and now tomorrow going forward with everything being digital, right, it could very well be cyber insurance. And now coming to the what you asked, in terms of, the evolving value chain, I think this is, where just picking a cue from the earlier point that I made, players are trying to see, if on their own or in partnership with, with insurtechs or, disruptors, right, you can offer the best solution, at that part of the value chain, right? So, for example, for us, if you look at customer servicing, right, when the contact centers were shut down during the pandemic, we were able to migrate all our customers overnight to digital channels, right? We had launched our AI-driven bot, we had launched WhatsApp, we had launched, our portal, we had launched our, mobile app. And Surya, you'll be astounded to know that at that point in time, our customer grievance ratio fell by 90%, which meant customers were extremely comfortable, with the new ways of, reaching out to us. Similarly, if you look at, claims, right, we had launched an AI-driven photogrammetry-based tool in motor insurance called On the Spot. You do not have to wait for a surveyor to come and assess your car in case you crash your car. Just take photographs, as in the customer just needs to take photographs and upload them using the mobile app, and in a matter of 20 minutes up to certain amounts, we get back to the customer with the extent of claim damage. He gives his consent and we transfer the funds. So that's one way in which we've been able to completely revolutionize one part of the value chain. So I think it's a very interesting industry right now, and with the rise of digital thanks to COVID-19, I think the industry is only going to see more interesting and dynamic days in the months and years to come.
No, you have touched upon a very important point there, on the customer experience part. So today's customers have, themselves have set a new standard of convenience, ease of use, and value. If I have to look at, especially the millennials and the insurance sector, because this is not a sector that was being very widely, accepted earlier by the general public. And for a long time, the traditional insurance business model, of course, like, if I may say, it's proved to be resilient, but now it's the beginning. That's the beginning of the impact of the digital era, right? And the examples which you've demonstrated through what your team has done, I mean, this is something especially remarkable in an Indian context, because how people have, perceived the insurance to be for them, and what they want to learn out of it, and what they expect from the insurers offerings. It's something, dramatic change that happens overnight. And that's kind of a brilliant aspect out there. And the product offerings which you've also touched upon, I think the emergence of emerging technologies have given rise to various new products that we as consumers may have not imagined earlier. Even through blockchain, how it has, transitioned the parametric insurance product part, it's something remarkable. And we are definitely looking for more innovations coming from the industry, and of course leaders like yourself are spearheading such movements. So it's a fantastic thing. So many
Thank you, Surya.
congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Dipu, also from an Indian standpoint, if I have to look at India is a vast country and with varied cultures and choices of products and services. From a customer perspective, the key reason for insurance purchase in India are mainly related to, tax incentives and compliance mandates. So that's how we Indians look at insurance as a product. That's why we buy insurance, for from an annual viewpoint, that we invest this much, we get this much of tax saving benefits, and etc. How do you see this changing with the evolution of technology and demands?
So, Surya, the point that you made, about customers, reasons for buying insurance, right? And I'll talk about, more specifically about general insurance. You see, insurance is a push product. That's because if you look at, us as human beings, right? When we wake up in the morning, you'll think of having a good day, right? Nobody wakes up thinking, that I'm going to fall ill, or, I'm going to crash my car, because you think of insurance, only during your times of trouble. So which is why it's a push product. So insurance basically happens through what we call a conversation, right? It's a conversational sale. You have a conversation, and then you basically educate customers on the need for them to plan for rainy days, and that's when the sale happens, which is why it continues to be a distribution led product. Distribution plays a key role. So one way, to the point that you spoke about, how does this entire aspect evolve, given the rise of technology and digital tools, is we have focused heavily on enabling our distributors. So especially when the lockdown happened, right, and we figured out that they needed to basically recalibrate their own approach to a digital and paperless and contactless world. We ensured that they were in a position to issue policies at their end using portals and tabs. The other is, when you look at training, it's very important because we have new products, you have new intermediaries coming in. So what we did was we also converted a lot of our standard operating procedures, which are in paper form, into quick, video SOPs. So we have a library of video standard operating procedures. So if somebody wants to know, how do I issue a policy, how do I process a refund, how do I raise a claim, you just send him this quick 2 minute video or WhatsApp. He looks at it, he learns it, and then he carries out the operation at his end. So at that way, we have made it extremely simple, and I think this whole idea of enabling partners to basically carry out activities at their end, I think has played a key role in terms of ensuring that, in this new era, we continue to leverage distribution because it's a push product, and thereby ensure that, customers are in a position to buy, policies. Secondly, now let's talk about, for a minute on health insurance, right? Because insurance is an essential service. And what happens if, let's say, somebody wants to, let's say, focus on motor insurance, right? You can tell somebody, you can always take your car out later. But if somebody is unwell, or if somebody wants to buy health insurance, that's not something which can be postponed. So we, again, on health insurance, we made the entire process, paperless. So if the customers had to submit documents, they could submit it in a paperless manner. Similarly, if they had to go for medical tests, because obviously, because of lockdown and because of demands on healthcare infrastructure, if a medical test is not possible, we made it digital. So we leverage telemedicine, whereby, we have a process known as telemedical underwriting, where through a video consultation, the doctor assesses, the patient, the prospective customer, and we get reports, right? Again, digitally, and then we are in a position to process it and take it forward. Similarly, when it came to claims, we again, launched a product called, Claim by Direct Click. Basically, you just submit your documents, digitally, and then, we basically, process them. So I think because of this, even from a purchase perspective and from a, from a servicing perspective, we were basically able to ensure that, from in a digital and paperless and seamless manner, we were able to cater to customers, from that perspective. Now, coming to your first point, right? I touched upon the second part of your question first. Coming to your first point in terms of, India being a vast country, with varied cultures. That's why, if you notice, I spoke about multilingual, in the earlier context, in my reply to your earlier question. And here I'll bring in, a case in point, which will really illustrate, the power of, how we leverage, the Indian context to sell products and services. Now, if you look at insurance, it cuts across the entire spectrum, because we sell motor insurance, we sell health insurance, we sell property insurance, we sell pet insurance, and we also sell crop insurance, which is to farmers. Now, what we figured out, and I'll pick crop insurance because I think it's a classic case which illustrates, how you cater to India. If you look at farmers, where are farmers present? They're primarily present in rural markets. Now, what are the key characteristics of rural markets? One is they don't speak in English. So we said, how do we service them? So we came out with the industry's first mobile app. Again, to your point on how do you leverage technology, exclusively for farmers, and we called it Farm Mitra. And we launched it not in English, but we launched it in regional languages. So they took to it,
Fantastic.
like a duck to water. So they could, yeah, so they could use it, to basically, service their needs through us. The second thing we did was we gave them access to, the government portal through the app, because farmers interact, with the government. So it became a one-stop shop. And the other aspect of rural markets is they're typically characterized by asymmetry of information. You don't have organized marketplaces. So we leverage this app to give them notifications on pricing. We give them information on the weather, because weather and soil play a very important role in agriculture. We gave them, notifications on crop, crop diagnostics, crop advisories. And when the lockdown happened, when they were basically sitting in the comfort of their home, using this app when they couldn't go out, just imagine, in the language of their choice, they would interact with us, interact with, the government, get information from the world at large. So our, word of mouth, through word of mouth, the download of the apps increased. At one point of time, we had a rating in excess of 4.6 on the Play Store, and this was a unanimous choice for EFMA Accenture's Global Insurance Innovation Award, last year. So just an example of, we leverage. I think this example brings together everything: multilingual, customer understanding, an industry-first app, so on and so forth. How we leverage, technology. So I think, the sky is the limit. If you're really able to customize your usage of technology given the specific needs of the Indian market.
I just have one word to say after carefully understanding this is just wow. I'm really fascinated how the farmers insurance product actually is working out, and how companies like yours are actually trying to not just navigate the way for the farmers, but also embracing technology to help an industry which is highly prone or at the forefront of natural catastrophic disasters. And insurance is one such financial services that will definitely, come to rescue of every farmers at every part of the world, and especially in a country like India, where we see a lot of, annual challenges that farmers are facing. So another big congratulations, Deepu. It's really
Thank you,
nice to
Surya.
hear
Thank you
that.
so much. Thank you.
Just a continuation to this, we have spoken a lot of, technological disruptions and how leveraging them is going to help the sector. Um, can we say embracing technology is an enabler rather than a disruptor, or especially when seen from the context of the new age Indian buyers of insurance products?
See, Surya, the point on whether technology is an enabler rather than a disruptor, I think it depends on where you draw the line. It
Right.
depends if you
Yeah.
have a very yeah, if you have a very sharp definition of disruption, then for that person, a lot of the initiatives may fall into the enabling sphere. Similarly, for somebody who draws a slightly broader definition of disruption, maybe more initiatives will fall into that bucket. So I think these definitions can sometimes be subjective, because you may not necessarily have a clear standard which says this qualifies as disruption or this qualifies as enabler. But if you were to, let's say, apply a commonsensical or layman's definition, right? A disruptor typically is about something new which comes in, right, which you have not seen. And an enabler is where you are maybe trying to, where you have modified an existing manual process into a digital process. So let me give you some examples, Surya, and I think that will kind of understand. So let's take, for example, because you spoke about blockchain a while earlier. So what we did 4 years ago, right? I'm not even talking about the recent period. I'm talking about 4 years ago, when everybody was, talking about blockchain. We actually walked the talk on blockchain, and I'll again illustrate that with an example, because we actually deployed it. This was in the area of international, travel insurance. So let's say you have a flight from, let's say, Mumbai to New York, and your flight gets delayed. Now, what would typically, you do as a customer? You would be immediately worried about, booking your next flight. Maybe that's available 12 hours later, 24 hours later, what would be the period. And then you need to plan all your bookings at the destination all over again. Maybe you need to cancel the hotel booking of the day that you are supposed to reach, extend it by one more day. Therefore, book a day after your original plan. Look at your business meetings, your taxi, so on and so forth. There is a host of rebookings that you have to get into. Now, at that time, if somebody were to tell you, saying that, do you realize, you're also eligible, for a claim payout, because of flight delay. Typically, you would say, yeah, but as it is, I'm worried about this entire thing, catching my next flight and making bookings all over again. I don't have the time to focus on that. And even if you did, let's say for some reason, you had a very efficient secretary and you were able to get it going. And let's say, you thought about it, right? What would the insurance company tell you? Give us some proof. And then you'll go to the airline, ask them to give you an email or a written letter or something, right? Some documentation that the flight is delayed. Then they'd say, give us a copy of your passport, give us a copy of your boarding pass. And while you're doing all this, you realize, that you may have to, maybe go in for security check. So it becomes a hassle. So we said, how do we minimize customer effort? So here, what we did, we said, why don't we take the onus of proving the flight delay from the customer onto ourselves? And that's where we leveraged blockchain. So by using blockchain, we put ourselves in a position where we get immutable proof that the flight is delayed. Now, while it's a conceptual switch, the onus of proving the flight delay moves from the customer to me. What we did was we used this to make a fundamental change in the insurance value chain, which is the customer need not notify us that is eligible for the claim. We reach out to the customer. So just imagine for the customer what a delight it is. He does not have to notify us. We reach out to him and we tell him, we understand, that the flight is delayed, so why don't you, go about this entire process? And then we made it so simple, that we could transfer the funds to him, on the spot. So for the customer, it just becomes a delight rather than, get into this rigmarole of, proving that the flight is delayed and then go through the entire process. Here's the insurance company reaching out to you and, transferring funds to you, right? So that's just amazing. Of course, nowadays nobody travels. So, it's difficult for customers to experience the beauty of this product. But, I'm just saying we launched this, 4 years ago. Now, this could be a disruption, right? It's not necessarily enabling. Similarly, when COVID-19 happened, like I spoke to you, we all spoke about, how the world went digital. But, we did some very interesting things, which is we focused on customers' unstated needs, right? You can understand stated needs. People want these products or services. For example, we figured out initially that when customers were talking to us, they could not go outside the house for minor ailments. One is there was a lockdown, and the other is obviously everybody is talking about COVID-19 and prioritizing that. But what if you have a headache or a stomach ache or or a minor ailment? And as I said, these can't be postponed. So we came out with a chat feature on our mobile app called Doctor on Chat. So all customers had to do was to log into our mobile app and have a video or a chat discussion with our empanel set of doctors. Take through digital consultation, get the prescription, and then just go out and buy medicines. It's a very simple tool but very effective. And similarly, at that time, when you had contact tracing coming in before the launch of Arogya Setu, we launched a feature on a mobile app called Social Track Pack, appropriately called Social Track Pack, by which customers, through their log of contacts, could actually verify whether they met someone. So in case they got infected, they knew whom to inform. And in case they heard about somebody getting infected in their social circles, they could go back and check the log, right? So that's how, digitally, we were able to, enable it. Similarly, at that time we came out with an AI-driven, self-assessment bot for customers to get themselves, tested for COVID-19. So they could get themselves tested in the comfort of their home without having to, go to the hospital. Now, these are all, superb enablements, but they could also be, in one sense, disruptions because we met unstated needs and, customers were, very happy. The other thing which we need to understand is that the moment you go digital, industry boundaries disappear because customers will not compare chatbots and mobile apps with the best they have had in that industry. They will compare it with the best that they have seen across industries. So in that sense, suddenly for you, the field becomes non-linear. So embracing technology or embracing digitization is, of course, great, but suddenly it opens up the world for you because now you need to keep an eye on, the best app or the best bot, across industries. And I think that's when it opens up huge avenues for carriers as well as for customers.
No, absolutely. When people were trying to understand what blockchain is, and you guys were actually at the forefront to deploy blockchain as a technology for better insurance offerings. I think I must take a pause and just convey to all our listeners that how Bajaj Allianz is actually leading the way. Everyone must follow and learn from each other. I think that's the perfect way to go ahead for for boosting what we call the digital economy. And as you said, technology, of course, they would give us a better products or better way of doing things. But what's more important is how we use technology to help consumers mitigate their risk, how we prioritize their pain points, and how we help them, not just covering that, but also to reduce and mitigate that in the near future. So that's some of the important point that we must also focus on. um, Lastly, Deepu, as an insurance leader, what will be your expectation from the insurance regulator that may ease the insurance buying behavior compared to what we see today?
Yeah. So Surya, if you look at it, the regulator has been, very proactive in terms of, this sandbox approach, that I spoke to you about,
Right.
because
Yeah.
the sandbox opportunity opens a window for, carriers to test out, various products and services across the entire life cycle, buying, servicing, new avenues, so on and so forth. So I think that has been a great initiative. And I think, as, we scale that up, I think it will just give rise to, to a host of, innovations. And I think that was, clearly the order of the day. The other, I think, is again, I think the regulator has regular meetings with various players from from the from the industry, right? So I think collectively, I think everybody is working on greater awareness of insurance, right? It's just important that everybody be aware of how the industry is functioning. So I think that exercise is already on. So I think through sandbox and through awareness, collectively, the combination of communication and innovation, I think that will yield wonders for the market.
No, no, absolutely. I think the regulator has also been, focused on the micro insurance part, which is some sort of a new area of
Right.
insurance that we are looking at in India, especially. So there's some exciting
Right.
opportunities and some, great partnership between regulators and the industry players happening. So it's brilliant to see the future, how it looks like. Thank you, Deepu. It was fantastic discussion, and thank you for sharing your thoughts there. It was truly a delight to have you as our guest. And lastly, to wrap this up, thank you for listening and see you at our next episode. Take care and stay safe. Goodbye for now.